Welcome. We're back together again for the Women's Leadership Forum podcast. And I am so excited about today because today we have a hot topic. We just have a hot topic. It's the talk that we've been talking about in the business community for a long time. It's the talk on the street. But welcome to the Women's Leadership Forum podcast. My name is Colette Coakley. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for Maryland Public Television, and I am the founder of the Women's Leadership Forum. You can find us on forwardwlf.org. That's FOWARDWLF.org. And today I'm excited about the voices that we're going to hear today, or the voice that we're going to hear today. A lot of people want to know, hey, who are we? What are we? We're a community of women who gather to network, to advance our possibilities through our voices, resources, and our connections, right? We welcome all women, no matter what walk they are in. We welcome you right where you are. These mini meetups and these podcasts are designed to feature women who are doing awesome work in their communities, in their households, and in their careers. Okay, and today, we have somebody here who, once again, you need to bookmark. You need to put in your contact list. Today, joining us from Broadmead and her own business, we have Jennifer Jimenez Maranya.
Yes.
I was intent on getting that right. I was deliberate on getting that right. She's the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Broadmead, and she has brought her diversity and inclusion expertise to institutions of higher education and healthcare around the country for over 15 years. We today will be discussing her perspective and the role that diversity and inclusion play in the workplace. So I want to jump right into this because as a HR expert, this is our hot topic. This is something where, before the virus hit, you spoke on at the Chesapeake Human Resources Association meeting where we last met. And so I'm going to open up with, why is diversity, equity, and inclusion an important topic, and why is everybody just talking about it?
All right. Well, let me start with, it has always been an important topic. Number one, hands down, it's always been. But I'll be real with you about why now? Why am I getting calls about, can you facilitate a listening session for my organization? And seeing announcements for organizations wanting to hire diversity directors or chief diversity officers. And to be honest, it was George Floyd, and it was the racial unrest and the protests all around that. Because this is a thing, this is not new. What happened to George Floyd, we know that's not new, but the difference was that people could see it and could see themselves in it. And I think for organizations and individuals across our nation and the world, there was a reckoning with realizing this should not happen to anybody of any background. And so I think that awareness and that kind of eye-opening, visible, like seeing of it, because once again, this is not new, unfortunately, but I think some folks just needed to see it and really realize things have to change. And so the beauty of it was that folks have now stepped up. So we have seen corporations make statements. We have seen new hiring processes, or like I said, in terms of diversity, professionals. We are seeing shifts in programming in hiring practices and opportunities across the board. And so that's kind of what we're seeing, a lot of that now. I think in terms of the why, right? It's really realizing that organizations need to do better, that the world is much more diverse than it's ever been, and that people's voices, their their stories, their value, that those are important to organizations. And so the practical side of that is that if you want to retain employees, if you want to be innovative and change agents in your industries, you're going to bring in some different voices, some different experiences. You're going to hear folks, and you're going to put people at the table where maybe traditionally they have not been, but you know that when you put them at the table, there's going to be some really innovative changes to that organization in a good way. You're going to stand out in ways that no other organization has, because you show that you value your people. And your people means folks of all kinds of backgrounds. No matter where they're from or how they self-identify, you're hearing those voices.
And thank you for that. And, I want to roll back my introduction of you, because what's a hot topic today is title. And I didn't complete your title. So, in honor of Jill, Dr. Jill, right? Dr. Jill Biden, let me go back and give you the proper title, which is Dr. Maranya. So I'm going to go back and say, welcome, Dr. Maranya. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Having said that, you have a diverse story in itself. And why don't you share with those who are watching and listening to us, share some of your story.
Sure. So I currently live in Maryland, but I'm a California girl, born and raised. Born and raised to parents who were both born and raised in the Philippines, and so they came to the United States as immigrants. And I think for me, growing up in California, I grew up in an area that was predominantly white. And I remember just not seeing myself reflected in my classmates, in the media, in books, in the things that I was learning. I really did not learn and see myself reflected in places around me, except for my own family. And it's interesting because when I think about my diversity journey, I think a lot about how do we create spaces where we can see ourselves, where we can be seen and heard. And I remember it wasn't intentional that I felt left out. It wasn't that folks were intentionally trying to leave me out. It was that I was looking for myself in the space around me, in the spaces around me. So yeah, grew up in California, born and raised, went to college there. And then actually it was around college, actually just after college, that I went through my first diversity training experience. And it was the first time in a structured environment where I was asked what my story was and to share that. And we did them in dyads, but it was a strange ask. Like, well, I don't know what my story is. Who am I? I had never really been asked that. And it was so eye-opening because my partner and I both shared things about ourselves that we would never have learned otherwise, and found points of connection that we never would have discovered. And through those 2 days of training, the connections that were made, the stories that were shared brought us closer together. And even though we were just so different on so many levels, all of us, we learned how to respect each other and value each other. And it really set the stage for the work that we had moving forward. And so I think, kind of with my own lived experience as an Asian American woman, Filipina American, because I get also, oh, wow, you speak English so well. Because I think there's still a lot of stereotypes about folks looking a certain way and not being from this country. I've gotten that. And I think that the voice that I was given to share my story was something that has pulled me through in my diversity world, and trying to create spaces for everybody's voices to be heard, for people to be seen, and for folks to see themselves reflected in the world around them.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Diversity, equity, inclusion. everybody is not working in that space, so everybody doesn't have a definition of what that is and what those three words mean. Can you help us out a little bit?
Sure. Sure. And I often think of it as the who, the what, and the how. So when we talk about diversity, it's the who. It's the mix of the people, the identities that we have, whether we, whatever our race, gender, ethnicity, lived experience, personality, marital status, religion, all those things, right? So that's the who. This mix of individuals, all together. And then, so the who and the what. How do we create equitable environments? How do we create environments where access to opportunities, where that's an option for all? And so the how is inclusion. We get folks at the table. We include voices. We include perspectives. And we listen, we pay attention, we create programs so that we are better able, to do this work. We create employee resource groups, et cetera. So it really, in a nutshell, that's how I kind of break it down in a way for folks when they're just kind of trying to make sense of what these terms are.
Okay. I might be stepping on toes here, but this question is burning for me.
Okay.
What do you say to those people who are in resource groups, or the companies? What do you say to the companies and the resource groups who consider checking the box as let's have diversity day and everybody bring your potluck dish representing your heritage?
So
I saw you swallow hard, but go ahead.
well, now the reality is some of it is meeting people where they're at. And for some folks, that's they just haven't tried some cultural food. And so for them, that's eye-opening. And that's the movement that they need to kind of open their eyes and minds and hearts to different cultures. So I think that on some level, there is some benefit to that, but we need to get deeper. And for organizations who are really serious about this work, it goes beyond that. Not to say that you can't do that. Have a potluck, sure, why not? That's fine, but get deeper. And when I say get deeper, it means having some tough conversations, having conversations that are uncomfortable, that's going to make us hold the mirror to ourselves individually and organizationally, and the kinds of conversations and actions that are going to shift the culture of the organization completely in a good way. But there's growing pains in that. And it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be an easy road, but it's going to be worth it. And so, once again, it's, have a potluck and do much more.
Okay. And some people listening are program directors, supervisors, CEOs of companies, managers. What's a misconception about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Gosh, I think there are a lot. One of the ones that stands out to me most is that the misconception that it's not about me, it's about them. That them being, oh, that person is a racist, they need this training, or that person is, that person needs help. Let's create a space for them. Um, and I say that because I think that we all need to take ownership for this work. That when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, it takes all of us stepping up and taking action. And as I said earlier, holding the mirror to ourselves. We've all got work to do. We've all lived in this world where we've received all kinds of messages that, to be honest, aren't always the truth, right? And we've heard those messages from people who we love, people in our own families, the media, where we're seeing certain messages and things. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion is about all of us. So I think we all need to step up and own it. It's going to look different on how we own it, but it's all about all of us.
So what I hear you saying is like that we all have something to learn in this process. It's not just for Caucasians. It's also for people of color. I also want to lend this is that it's not always just a matter of race, right? That there are other things that differentiate people. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's so much more.
For the person who's trying to start a program or just have a conversation, how do they start? What do they do? I mean, you're sitting in your office and you're like, yeah, we need to get started, or you're the CEO who decides I want to delve into this space. What questions do you ask yourself, or how do you get started?
So the first question I would ask of the individual and the organization is why? Why is this important to you? Why are you willing to put resources into this? Because if you can't answer that, then that's going to be a problem for you moving forward and sustaining these efforts. And so when I say why, so why why is it important for your organization to embark on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts? How is it embedded? How is it connected with your mission, vision, and values? And so sometimes it seems, oh, I can answer that really easily, and that's great. But put it on paper, write it down, lay it out, because this is a thing. In what happens in some organizations is, oh, we wrote a statement, and you get all excited, and it becomes that initial like momentum, and then it starts kind of dying down. Okay, things get busy, other priorities take precedent, and then suddenly this momentum is no longer a priority. And so when you know what your why is and you're able to kind of follow that through and go back to it, that keeps the efforts sustainable. And so that's just step number one, right? And then of course it's getting the right folks at the table, having a champion, and I like to call them executive champions. If you want to get some stuff done, it's going to have to start at the top. While ideally it would be the president, if you do have an executive champion who is the COO or some other person, that's fine because they've got the president's ear. But this is, I'm thinking about organizations who don't have a diversity director or somebody in these roles and just really wants to get it going. Know what your why is and start at the top. And then I got a whole list of, but
okay.
In terms of initial things, if folks like, where do I even begin? It starts with you. It starts with the leadership. It starts with understanding why this is important.
So, you go into your boss's office and you're trying to tell him, or her, right, that there's a benefit to this. What are some of the benefits that, perhaps we don't have rolling off of our tongue, right, that we could consider when we are talking to our bosses about starting diversity, equity, inclusion efforts at our companies?
So I think first thing is really, what's the business case? Because I think that's going to speak volumes. So the business case could be that it increases retention of employees. It creates more innovative solutions to problems that the organization might be dealing with. It gives our employees a voice. It increases employee engagement. It in terms of the money aspect of it, our competitors are doing it, and whatever. So in terms of, you got to think, what's the business case, right? Because for some, that is what's going to speak. And so if it means money, if it means voice, if it means all those things, then yes, bring them to the table. But there's also data out there that shows that it's not just talk. These things are true for organizations, and they make organizations better on so many levels. And if you think about the hiring process and how much money it takes to onboard someone into the organization, and this is a vice president of HR, what a pain it is to have somebody leave and have to constantly, rehire and rehire. And so that's money lost right there when you can have some really, when you already have some amazing individuals with ideas and insights that you've never even thought of that enhance the work of the organization.
And sometimes, Jennifer, would you say it's like how you couch it and how you word it? And it might not be the diversity word, but it might be the retention word that gets the attention, right, of your boss. It might be, yeah, you are spending X amount of dollars for in turnover rate, and a goal could be spending much less as a result of not having such a high turnover rate, right? Rather than calling it, this is the diversity program.
Right.
Yeah, this is diversity program. Because sometimes diversity, saying the diversity word, sometimes is scary,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It sometimes becomes scary, particularly for the white male who ends up thinking, are we trying to get pushed out of a job, or are we trying to push people away? When actually you are thinking about the business and business growth, business acumen, business retention. And so we have to do a sell job too. Is that correct?
That's true.
And know our stuff. Well, you can't just come in one day and say, I'd like to create a diversity program, without having given it much thought.
Right. And another example that comes to mind is employee engagement. And so a lot of organizations have this employee engagement survey that, they have their employees fill out. If you disaggregate that data, if you were to break that data down by, let's say, race, gender, by different, different aspects, what would the data look like? So really, when we talk about the business case and retain employees and decrease turnover, that some of that data is right there at your fingertips. But
absolutely,
we go deeper. We don't go under the surface to find that. It's almost like we're afraid to. But that's where the value is, and that's where you can move the organization forward in ways that you just had never imagined.
And sometimes the look of diversity is extremely simple. You have an employee event where Bob doesn't attend, but Bob lives way across town and can't make it because he has to take care of his family at a particular time. Could it be that the data says I need to alter something? I as an HR person might need to alter an event so that he or she can participate in it. They can be simple things, but it does require what I like to label as intentionality. That you have to be intentional about the business. You have to be intentional about the direction that you're headed in order to have effective change.
Right? Absolutely. It really does take intentionality. And that's why, once again, the why question is so important. There has to be intention there. And when you can get to that why, it gives you that sense of, this is our intention. This is why we're doing it. And then you roll out exactly what that looks like.
I also want to bring up something that has worked for me that I appreciated that another diversity inclusion expert gave to me, and I will credit Dr. Harris with this, is that your approach should be out of love, and that gets you much further than constant complaint.
Yeah.
Trying to resolve that issue in a manner of love rather than a manner of tell off, or a manner of what everybody could do, is a better approach than just taking to heart what it is that you want to do.
Mm.
Having that conversation from the heart, and having a program from the heart is often a better starter than just jumping in with all your might, I might say.
No, I love that. And I think even though I have not articulated it that way, it truly is at the core of, this work. So I work at Broadmead, which is a life plan community. I work with older adults doing diversity work. And it's been an amazing journey because, as you read in my bio, I had done a lot of work in higher ed and healthcare. And so in the past 2 years, actually, almost, I've been working with older adults. And this Quaker organization that I work with, one of the values that Quakers have is that they see the light of God in everyone. And no matter what religious belief you have, this light that everybody has, this light is love. And so if you can see that in everyone, it shifts our approach, because the reality is these conversations are uncomfortable and they can be divisive, but
Mm-hmm,
they
mm-hmm.
don't have to be. They do not have to be. And so if you see that light in everyone and you can take a step back and try and understand another person's story, their perspective, their experience out of love and seeing their light, it
Right.
shifts the conversation and creates an opening for connection. That once again, when we think about, oh, they're so different, sometimes it can become this, oh, they're different and keep them over there. But no, there's so much beauty in it. There's so much beauty and opportunity in it, that it really is about that love and light and finding that connection.
So we're coming to a close. These things go by so quickly. We probably could talk for a long time. I want you to leave us with something that might be extremely profound. Not that you haven't said some profound words just a few seconds ago, but how can we all do better in this area of diversity, equity, and inclusion as individuals?
How can we do better? Gosh, I think that what we can do better about is listening. Um, I think that sometimes we get so much into, oh, I have to respond, and you referred to it like calling things out. And so we're ready to call it out. But let's take a step back and just listen. And I've actually been asked, how do you have these conversations? I don't know how to have these conversations. And the first thing I often say is listen. And so, because when you listen, there may be things that maybe you've heard them before, but you'll hear it differently when you're truly listening. So I would leave with that. Let's taking the time to listen to the individuals around you, the stories, the experiences, and learn. There's so much for us to learn. Yeah.
So I thank you. I learned, if I didn't know about the Quakers in that couple of minutes, I learned something today about the Quakers, and that was really profound what you said. Listening is an art,
Mm-hmm.
and it is not something that we're just born with. We have to learn how to do it, and take time. It's often hard because we want to respond right away.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we want to respond so that we don't forget what we were going to respond with, and so in that process, we aren't listening. But I listened hard to what you said today. I appreciated all your words of wisdom. I also want to say thank you for joining us today, because this diversity, equity, and inclusion work is hard. It's not easy. We see that a lot of companies are hiring folks to try to get it right, and it's no easy road to go up against. So, you know, I applaud you and your work. I also want to say, I'm transitioning just a little bit, that Jennifer and her company are proud sponsors of the Women's Leadership Forum that's coming up on March 18, 19, and 20. We would like to see all of you there. I know Jennifer will be there. We had a good time. We had good discussion. We had great conversation. And we invite our listening and viewing audience to be there with us, because it's the diversity in that conversation. That is what makes that particular forum, this particular forum, great. Is that we bring a lot of women together to have conversation, to increase our knowledge, increase our access and our networking, and to elevate ourselves. So join both Jennifer and myself on March 18, 19, and 20. You can purchase tickets on our website, which is forwardwlf.org. I also invite you to join us in our next broadcast. I said broadcast, but podcast. That just shows how long I've been working in this medium, which will be Friday at 2:30, when we bring another awesome woman, Miss BJ, and those initials are going to be enough to make you want to attend. Miss BJ, that's all I'm going to say about that. Miss BJ is the first Native American Black female student to attend the nursing program at the University of Virginia at the age of 16. And she's also the co-founder of the Park West Medical Center. So once again, I want to thank Jennifer. We've got a lot going on. I invite you again to visit our site, forwardwlf.org, to keep up with us. And if anything, go to our site. We released our newsletter today. Look for our newsletter. Join us. We don't require much of you all, but just to listen and join our community. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jennifer, for being our guest. And most of all, I appreciate the viewing and listening audience. I hope to see you on Friday, and I also hope to see you at the forum, March 18, 19, and 20. Thank you so much. Have a happy holiday. Look forward to seeing you soon.